You've talked a lot about changes that you've seen happen so far in the business, the rise of the consumer in the business, obviously the transition from a B2B relationship into a consumer-driven relationship for those reasons. I'm curious, if you had a crystal ball and you could foresee a couple of years out, where would you imagine this business is going, and how much further, if at all, do you see it evolving? Where do you see this going in terms of the continued rise of the consumer in healthcare?
You know, when I start to think about what's going to happen in healthcare over the next 5 to 10 years, I go back to my very early career where I started in financial services. And I was working in financial services during the defined benefit to defined contribution conversion. That's when we started taking pensions away from people and giving them 401ks instead. Looks an awful lot like consumer-directed healthcare,
Sure.
doesn't it, right? So a very easy system to use where you just kind of got a pension, you just kind of got your health care, to, oh, you've got to manage your 401k, now you have to manage your health care. So you think about those, and if you think about that and use that as your case study, look at the companies that were in the defined benefit business back in the late 80s and early 90s. Not one of them is in business today.
Sure.
They are not even close to what they looked like at that point in time, because not one of them could keep up with the changing tide and the rising consumer expectations. And that was before we had all the information in the world in our hand. So people were that ticked off back then. So now extrapolate that to healthcare, right? I can make a decision in the palm of my hand on pricing. I'm now able to walk into a lab in Arizona or California and order any lab test I want from a pharmacy lab, right, sitting inside of a Walgreens. I don't have to go to a doctor's office anymore. I don't have to ask my insurer to do those things. It's $4.99 for a number of these things, right? So you start to think about the power we're putting in people's hands, and that doesn't even get into wearables, right? I mean, this doesn't even get into health IT.
Sure.
This has nothing to do with, you know, can I monitor my own blood pressure and my own heart rate, and can I stick something in my toilet and make sure that I'm doing okay today? None of that, right? So just take that into consideration. Think about financial services and look at healthcare as an industry. These are a bunch of really old companies, very much like those financial services institutions were. I'm not sure that any of them will be able to make it through this change with all of the rise of these fascinating new startups who are coming in, like an Oscar Health, to disrupt the industry in ways that I think a lot of the old traditional companies aren't even thinking about how they can deal with yet, right? You know, people are just starting to talk about customer experience in a lot of the health plans in the last 1 to 2 years. There are firms who've been working on this for 20, 30 years, or 20 or 30 minutes, and they're coming out with a better product than people who've been thinking about it forever. So it's gonna be a massively changed industry, and it's gonna be so much fun to watch and hopefully help, right? Hopefully help.